no. Come on, where is it?
Dave, it's your Idaho Central app here. Any chance you're missing a debit card? Let's get that taken care of for you. With ICCU's card control, you can turn any card off with the tap of your finger.
You got it.
And back on again. Ow, 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 ow. The closest Idaho Central Credit Union branch is in your pocket.
Ooh, the gym. Old stomping grounds. Hank Patterson, Fly Fishing Guide.
Riley Smith, tight end.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, you wouldn't happen to be the kicker?
No, tight end.
Again, thank you. I'm looking for a kicker for Lithia Ford's fall kickoff sale. But you're not the kicker.
No.
Yeah. Nah, the kicker's probably taller and in a lot better shape. So, okay. What position do you play?
Tight end.
Squats. Yeah. Try it sometime.
RowPaint.com, the official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics, is going all in this season with an all-star lineup. First up, he led the Broncos to 3 conference championships and 10 20-win seasons. It's Coach Leon Rice. Next, he's the founder and CEO of RowPaint.com. He played a little basketball in high school on the driveway with his mom. It's Andy Rowe.
Oh, no. Want to just paint my house?
Now that I can do. When I want Boise State to win, I trust Coach Rice to lead the Broncos to victory.
And when I want the best painting and garage floor coating, I trust RowPaint.com to get that job done right.
This is Bronco Nation News Live. The best interviews, the most informed opinions, the latest breaking news, all from the top Boise State insiders. Today's broadcast is coming from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of pre-mixed premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Canned Cocktails is perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Now, here's 4-time NSMA Idaho Sports Writer of the Year, BJ Rains, with another edition of Bronco Nation News Live.
Hey, how we doing, Boise State fans? Welcome on into a Friday edition of Bronco Nation News Live. We bring in our man Jay Tust as well, sports director at KTVB. We got a fun show today. We're going to talk a little bit about Stacy Collins. I got a couple clips to play. We'll get into kind of his philosophy on special teams and what we heard and what we liked. A lot of, I think, what we heard we liked yesterday, but we'll dive into a little bit of that. And then, obviously, the focus today, first place showdown tomorrow, Extra Mile Arena. And Jay, I think our friend Jeremy Rodriguez on Twitter Jeremy Kawika, I think is his Twitter name, said it right yesterday, that the obvious reason that this game was not picked up for national TV is that the Mountain West Network knew that Jay Tust was on the call and they wanted the game this year. So
that's obviously it. That has to be the reason. Has to be the reason.
All of a sudden, these no disrespect to the previous Mountain West Network announcers here in Boise, but all of a sudden, Jay Tust is on these games, and we've had Colorado State, Utah State. We've had some mega games on the MW this year. I don't think it's a coincidence.
A lot of quad one matchups, man. A lot of quad one matchups. I hate to take credit for it because I absolutely can't, but I will. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I'm excited though. This is another big game. I mean, had the chance to call the Colorado State game a couple of weeks ago. That worked out well for Boise State with a 65-58 victory, and now they're going to chase another quad one victory at the X on Saturday. So
can we see your board? Can we see your board? Where's your board? Let's see the board.
I'm doing it. Gosh, I don't even know how I probably can't share it, or I don't know how I would share it with you. I'm doing them a little bit differently this year.
All right,
so I got my whole Excel sheet laid out like a week in advance, and that way saves me a little less handwriting. It expedites the process a little bit. So I'm well on my way. We'll get it there. I'll tweet out a picture or something before tip off tomorrow.
That's
maybe on the pregame show.
Every announcer has their own way of doing it, their own thing. It's kind of like keeping score in baseball. Everybody has their own way to say fly out to right field or whatever. But good old Bob Beeler still does every single game by hand, and I watch him and look at some of his notes and stuff. And some guys do half and half. They'll put the stickers of the players on there, and then they'll do the hand. There's all kinds of ways to do it. And I've seen some where it's 100% hand, some where it's 100% by the computer. But we'll see, Jay. The Mountain West Network is pretty easy for the
Real quick, the one thing that's tough about, I've decided to go the computer route for now because I think typing's faster than writing.
Okay.
But what you run into there is if you can't find a printer, which I had a little problem. I can't remember what game I was supposed to come on your pregame show. I was scrambling to find the correct printer that could do color and an 11x14, and kind of ran into some trouble there for a minute. But if you can't find a printer, there's not a Kinko's. Is Kinko's even around anymore? I don't know. Whatever.
I think it is.
Okay, well, if you can't find one of those
places,
you're in trouble.
Yeah. I would like all the extra room on the margins and stuff to write stuff. But my handwriting is so bad that I would spend all this time writing it, and then I wouldn't be able to read what I wrote. But we'll see. That's going to be fun tomorrow. And the Utah State fans have been very defensive about their team and their ranking on social media. So I can only imagine when you get excited for some big Boise State bucket, how much the Utah State fans are going to enjoy hearing you on the Mountain West Network. And I will just say in advance, I've heard some games from Logan on the Mountain West Network as well. And I would say from all over the Mountain West. And I think you and Dom and the crew there do it about as neutral and about as professional as you possibly can. There are some Mountain West road venues that just pipe in the radio broadcast or just have, 100%, I hate to use the word homer, but just Utah State or whatever team guys doing the games. But I'll be very curious if there's any wrath. I saw a little bit at the Colorado State fans. They were frustrated how the team's playing. So let's just take it out on the announcer. But we'll see what happens tomorrow, man. You got to keep that in mind a little bit, but you obviously know where your allegiance lies here.
Well, it's not even a matter of that, but I mean, it's just a hometown broadcast. I mean, I do think they do a pretty good job of being as neutral as possible, but just naturally, I mean, when you have Spencer Danielson on at halftime, I mean, we're not going to fly, Utah State's football coach up here to do a halftime interview or whatever. So yeah, and that was at the Colorado State game. I'm not saying Spencer's coming on this week. He came on at halftime at Colorado State. So but it should be an awesome game. I have great respect. I think that Utah State has one of the coolest storylines in all of college basketball, if I'm being honest with you, BJ. To lose what they did, their entire their head coach, their coaching staff, almost their entire roster, and somehow be in the top 20 right now. I mean, it really is an awesome story that's going on in college basketball right now. And I don't even think the most intense Boise State fans could deny that. It's cool what the Aggies have been able to do, and it's brought credibility to the conference. And now Boise State has a chance at a quad one win because of what Utah State has done so far this season. So it's great for the league.
Yeah, and I think Utah State is obviously good. I'm just not quite sure how good yet. They still have a lot of the road venues they still have to go to. They're 0-1 on the road in terms of facing the top teams in the league. They lost by 13 down at New Mexico. We all know what happened at UNLV. They very easily could have lost that game as well. So they're obviously good. Are they top 20 good by the end of the season? We'll see. But as you talked about earlier, Jay, I think with New Mexico a couple of weeks ago too, like at this point, like, hey, if Utah State did game the system or whatever with all these big easy wins early in the season, like good for them, because this is a quad one game tomorrow for Boise State. 4 of the next 5, by the way, are quad one games. And I remember Max Rice last year. This is what started the ire of Utah State fans with Max Rice. Is after the game, he said, well, I hope we didn't beat them too bad to where the win now goes to quad 2 because they were quad 1 when they played them the first time. And the Utah State fans did not like that quote. And I talked to Max, joked about it the other day on the way to Fresno. And he brings that up and remembers that. And he went on some Mountain West podcast at Media Days, and all the Utah State fans were we're all over them. And so maybe down in Logan, it'll be a little different than tomorrow. But I do think this Utah State game is one that Max Rice has had circled for a while. And the funny thing is, if Boise State wins by, 10 plus points tomorrow, Max Rice could make the exact same comment and tick them off again, because they're 24th in the net right now. And if Boise State, beats them by 15 or whatever, there's a chance that could drop below 30. So it's a very similar situation as last year, where Max ticked off the Utah State fans with his comment. It was, I think Boise State won by a decent margin. He said, I just hope we didn't beat them too bad where it goes to quad 2. And I know what he meant. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a shot at Utah State. It was like, we need them to stay quad 1, so we get the credit for it. And we just beat them pretty badly. And very interesting that, he could maybe make the same exact comment tomorrow if they were to beat them rather easily.
That's actually funny, because we've been talking about margin of victory a little bit recently, BJ, and how that would help Boise State bump up. But if you are talking about the quad 1 resume, maybe you don't want to beat them by 20, if that's even on the table, by the way. I mean, this is a good team. You look at common opponents. They played San Francisco 1-1. Boise State had a much, I'd say, more comfortable victory over San Francisco, right, BJ?
Yes, the final score of that game against San Francisco was by 5. Boise State won by 5.
So a little more comfortable, I guess, not completely, but either way,
they won on the road at UNLV, and Boise State lost at home to UNLV.
Yeah, and you kind of look at some of their other games, though. I mean, definitely their best win was Colorado State, which was played in Logan. Yep. But outside of that, a lot of their resume work, I would say, has been done in quad 2, not necessarily quad 1. And they've beat some good teams, but I don't know how many great teams that they've played. And if you consider that quad 1 category is, playing great teams, they lost on at Bradley earlier this year. That was a quad 1 game. They obviously beat Colorado State. Their only other quad 1 game was at New Mexico, and they lost by 13. So, their record against what I would consider great teams is 1-2. Boise State has a few more victories in that column than Utah State. But for that reason, Utah State's gonna be hungry to go get another quad 1 win. Boise State is too, but this is another chance for Utah State to make a case that not only do they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament, but to have a decent seed at the NCAA tournament at this point.
Yeah, and you look at the KenPom rankings. I mean, just for example, they're 17-2, Jay, and they're 43rd. And you look down the line, you have a Princeton team that's 15-1, is 53rd. You have there was another one on there. James Madison is 18-2, but you're not seeing any legit at-large candidates from either the Power Conference or the Mountain West or any of these teams that only have 2 losses that are still sitting at 43rd in the rankings. So the KenPom rankings, KenPom is not necessarily sold on Utah State. I mean, if you're 17-2, the net obviously is. They're 24th in the net, but some of the computer metrics still have Utah State, like I said, in the 40s. Again, if they want to clip this off and show it down in Logan, that's great. I think Utah State is a good team, a potentially very good, potentially great team. I just don't think we've seen enough of them against good teams to really be able to tell that for sure. I think they have one of the best. I think they have one of the best home court advantages in the Mountain West, and they're not going to lose many, if any, there. And as you said, the Colorado State game was there. What do we have to judge by on them on the road? They went to New Mexico. Again, I get it. Another tough environment, but they lost. They go to UNLV, and, you got to give them credit. They won the game. But, again, that was a fluky play at the end, and they were down double digits for a decent part of that game. So I guess for me, and that's why when I had them 4th in my power rankings and New Mexico 5th for very similar reasons, both those fan bases got, ruffled a little bit and didn't like that, but it was really comes down to, I just want to see a little more of them against some of the better teams in the league. And so I think tomorrow is, are we going to say if Boise State wins tomorrow, oh, Boise State's clearly the better team? We may not be able to say that for a couple of weeks when they go back down to Logan. I don't know, but I certainly think that Boise State has certainly tested itself, has certainly played tougher teams, and I get it, they haven't beaten them all, but I just think that for me, it's hard for me to say Utah State is clearly the top team in the league at 7. When like you said, they really haven't challenged themselves very much. They beat up on a lot of bad teams to help their computer metrics, and that was great. And so far, they've done their damage in conference play at home for the most part, aside from the win at UNLV. So, I'm not going paper tiger, whatever route. I'm not going that far. I think they're a solid team, and I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be in the top 5 for sure. But I think when this shakes out, I'm not sure they're going to quite end up being right there at the top. But we'll see what happens. But I think tomorrow, as you said, is a massive game for Boise State for a lot of reasons. I'm going to say this, Jay. Like, I know I'm rambling here, but like, I kind of had this real, I'm sure you do this too, but like just at random times, you're looking at random stats or random things pop into your head. And it was, 7:30 this morning, and I'm just looking at the net rankings and some of this stuff, and I'm just like, it's kind of go time for Boise State here. Like you look at you look at where they're at, and I get it. The quad system, they're doing pretty well, and they are. If they win tomorrow, they'll be one of only 5 teams in the country with at least 5 quad 1 wins. Like their overall quad system rankings are good, but like that's not all that the selection committee looks at here. And we're in late January, almost February, and Boise State is number 58 at KenPom and 56 in the net, and in like the 60s in the BPI, and like a lot of the metrics that are going to be on those team sheets for Boise State, like you don't get an at-large bid when you're number 58 at KenPom. Like you just you just typically don't. And so I get that a lot of the bracketologists right now have Boise State in the field, and I get that you're probably going to, if you win some of these games by the end of the season, the metrics will probably be where you want them to be. But like right now, like that Fresno State game, that's why if they had won that game by 16 instead of 4 or whatever it was, like that would have really helped. The UNLV loss has really hurt them in the rankings. They've just got to start making up some ground. So I don't even know if it's possible, but like if they could win tomorrow's game by 10, like a home game against a team that's ranked really high, that is the scenario for you to really add to your resume. And again, I don't know if they can do it. I'm just saying tomorrow's game, a home game, if you have a chance to win that by double digits somehow, that is how you could make a fairly significant jump probably in the metrics, which Boise State needs to start doing.
Yeah, no, you're right, dude. And I mean, you look at last year, right? Nevada was 48, finished the year 48 in the net. I should probably back this up before the NCAA tournament. But
by the way, I hate that the net doesn't let you do that.
Yeah, right.
They just give you that days, and there's really no sorting tool that I can find for daily net rankings.
Yeah.
At least through the official NCAA site.
Well, yeah, I guess I can go off how far they dropped. And I mean, if you're in the 50s on Selection Sunday, you have reason to be concerned. I mean, there were 2 teams last year, just kind of looking at this, I believe, Arizona State and Pittsburgh. They worked their way into the NCAA tournament as at-large bids. But they were in the 60s, and they still found a way to earn an at-large.
Nevada was 40. Let's see, Nevada was 44 going into the NCAA tournament at KenPom. They finished 62 after they lost to Arizona State, and then the way that it all played out. But they were, according to this, 44 at KenPom going into the tournament, and they were one of the last 4.
Yeah,
at 44.
So I mean, you're playing with fire, though, man. Like you.
Yeah. Yeah, we think Boise State's good. We think they're an NCAA tournament worthy team. The eye test certainly would say that. The quad system would say that. But when they line that thing up and there's numbers in the 50s and 60s, like for whatever reason, the computer metrics just don't line up with some of the wins and some of the other things Boise State has done this year. Right. I know some folks are saying, oh, well, maybe they shouldn't have played all those hard non-conference games. They should have just rolled through some of these easier games. I don't know if that's quite the answer, because if they'd have won 1 or 2 of those games, they'd be in a much better spot. But the eye test and the on-court rankings and like what you're seeing hasn't added up with the computer metrics for Boise State so far this year.
And I mean, unfortunately too, and it really doesn't feel like it should hurt them as much as it did, but that UNLV loss is kind of haunting them right now, BJ, because they were as high as 42 right before that game, and they sit at 56 right now. So you could argue that game cost them 14 spots in the net ranking, and if they win that game, they might even be in the plus. I mean, I don't think they'd be any worse than 42 right now, which means they'd be on the cusp of the top of the 30s. And if you can go into Selection Sunday, if you're Boise State anywhere in the 30s, I think you feel pretty good about your chances here. But you're kind of right, man. It is kind of getting to be go time. It is kind of time to turn it on, get a couple of victories, and it's it's almost February, man. So everything counts, everything matters, as Jeremiah Dickey would say, and that applies to one's NCAA tournament resume. And I do think this Utah State team is tough. I think the thing that makes them tough is that they're balanced. They have a lot of guys that contribute, and if you do look at their efficiency ratings on using Ken Palm, whether it be offense or defense, they're top 50 in offense. They're darn near top 50 in defense. I think they're 51 in adjusted defense. So they're just kind of a well-balanced team. Boise State is kind of lean more on the defensive, on their defensive prowess than their offensive, maybe at times, especially in Mountain West Conference play. I think that it would be to their benefit if this game is played in the 60s. But we'll see if that can be the case. If you allow this Utah State team to get hot and break 70 or even 80, then I would be really, really concerned if you're Boise State. They're going to have to bring it defensively on Saturday.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, although I certainly think it could.
Mm-hmm.
But just the way it's set up, one way to quickly make that fix is to win by 15 tomorrow.
It is.
You find a way to win by 15 tomorrow. You go from 56 in the net to like 48 or something, probably. I mean, you can get 7 or 8 spots in the net if you can win by double digits tomorrow, I would think. And I know sometimes it's how other teams do. It's not just, Boise State, I've seen them go up 3 or 4 spots in a couple days without playing, and I've seen them go down 3 or 4 spots in a couple days without playing. It just depends on teams around them winning and losing, and I get it. But it would be very hard to get an at-large bid, Jay, if they're still in the 50s in the net come Selection Sunday.
I agree. I think you feel super uncomfortable to the point where that's one of those situations where maybe you don't even host a watch party because you don't want to be on the wrong side of that darn thing, right?
Yeah,
so,
but it's just so weird. It's just hot. Yeah, and like you look at like Auburn, they're in like the top 25 and all this, and I think they have 0 quad 1 wins.
They do. They had one. They had a chance against Alabama. They had a chance against Alabama, and they couldn't quite get that done. Played them really, really tough, awesome basketball game. But yeah, you're right. You look at stuff like that, it does make you scratch your head a little bit, BJ. Auburn has absolutely pummeled teams lately. A lot of those in the quad 2 and quad 3, but they have pummeled teams. No quad 1 wins, a lot of lopsided quad 2, quad 3 wins.
Yeah. It's very going to be a unique case study this year in terms of the selection committee and what they're looking at and things. Cause again, the quad system and all that is I will say this, the net ranking itself is not supposed to be used as like a power ranking. Like, oh, they're 30th in the net and they're 35th. Let's take the team that's 30th. It is supposed to more be used to help with to decipher the 5 quad 1 wins and all that. They say, oh, the net's more important for your opponent than it is for you.
Yeah.
But that only goes to an extent. That net ranking is still on your team sheet. The Ken Palm, the BPI, the Sagarin, all that stuff is still on your team sheet. So I think at a minimum, Boise State needs to get in the 40s. But I think if there was a way to get into the 30s in some of these by Selection Sunday, but you're talking 20 plus spots. I mean, and like I said, you only get so many home games. You only get so many opportunities to pad the stats a little bit. And I think tomorrow is one where, again, they may lose. They may win by 1. Like I know it's just survive in advance. You got to win. I know Leon doesn't like talking about margin of victory and all this kind of stuff. But if there was ever a game where you were just clicking on all cylinders and you had a great day and the other team was off and it was a perfect day, it would be a 78-60 win or something tomorrow. Would just go a long way for this team.
BJ, what all goes into the net rankings? I know that they altered this a little bit, a couple of years ago. But what all kind of is considered there? I know like Ken Palm considers margin of victory and stuff like that a little more.
The net does as well. The net does as well.
But that's what somebody said that tweeted at me the other day. It takes it out of it, but they still use efficiencies. And if you're more efficient in a blowout, then that's going to help you, right?
So the net was unveiled. I'm looking at a story here from The Athletic just to make sure I get it exactly right. Obviously, in 2018, 2019, it replaced the RPI, and the RPI only measured a team's winning percentage, their opponent's winning percentage, and their opponent's winning percentage. They took nothing else into factor. The NCAA wanted to get something that was more predictive, efficiency numbers, all that quality of wins and losses. So the net was adjusted after the first year they used it in 2020. It says to remove factors like scoring margin and winning percentage, but I believe it still does use some of that. It says the problem is, and this is the line right here, the formula, the exact components of which remain secretive, has gone unchanged since. So
Right.
they don't really tell you. It's a very similar thing to Ken Palm, to Bart Torvik, who I'm a big fan of as well.
Mhm.
And
the one thing that those guys do, though, that the net doesn't, it kind of drives me crazy, is that those guys have a metric they release with it, right?
yeah,
Like, what if Ken Palmer stripped all of his data off of it, and he just clicked on his profile or his website, and it just said Boise State, with a number next to it, with none of the other stuff next to it, right? So that is kind of like, there is obviously a metric out there that ranks these teams. There is a number associated to each of these teams.
yeah.
I don't really understand why that can't be revealed.
And did you see the controversy with the BPI too, the ESPN one about the elevation? So apparently the BPI, which is or KPI, whichever one is ESPN's ranking, that somehow actually has a spot as one of the 5 they use on the team sheets. They actually penalize you. They penalize you for playing at elevation, and because they're trying to like even out the factors or whatever. So you actually get a negative for playing at elevation, which of course hurts all of the Mountain West teams. And there's this kind of bigger conspiracy that I don't really know how much truth there is to this, but ESPN does not have a TV deal with the Mountain West Conference or with, I believe, the Pac-12. There's another conference. There was like 2 conferences that do not have a deal with ESPN, and those 2 conferences, their teams are ranked significantly worse in the ESPN BPI or whatever versus Ken Palm and the net and all that. And so there's some conspiracy theorists saying that ESPN is trying to make the teams that they have deals with look, and the leagues they have deal with look, in a better spot to help them get more teams into the NCAA tournament. I don't know if I might go that far, but literally like Boise State is like, 15 spots worse in the ESPN one than a lot of these other ones. And it's has a lot to do with the elevation factor, which for some reason they penalize you for playing at elevation, which doesn't make much sense. And so
I guess we'll know this, BJ, in 10 years when all these Pac-12 teams moving to other conferences doesn't work out. They reform the Pac-12. ESPN gets a new deal with the Pac-12 because the SEC breaks over and starts their own super network on Amazon or something like that. And then ESPN all of a sudden conveniently penalizes teams at sea level to, when you can't play at sea level. That's not right. You want elevation. That's tough.
Well, Boise being at 2,500 counts as elevation. That's actually like number 18 in the country in terms of highest elevation for Division I teams. I think like 6 of the top 20 or 7 of the top 20 are in the Mountain West. So 2,500 feet is one of the highest. I will say highest elevations there is in college sports.
Yeah, I will say this. The good news is that Boise State has a lot of people talking right now. Like even like Lunardi, who, that's a guy that it really seems like I don't even know how much he projects necessarily. I think he's got a very detailed system, and he plugs and puts teams in certain areas based off of certain metrics, and he has him in his field. And just about everywhere you look, Boise State is in the projected NCAA tournament field of 68 by various publications. Some have them as high as an 8 seed right now, right? And here we are talking about, wow, they're kind of low in the net. They're going to be worried on Selection Sunday. There's a lot of quad one opportunities coming up. And I think sometimes we forget, BJ, too, like even once they roll down to the Mountain West tournament, more quad one opportunities await. This could very easily be a team that has 10 quad one outcomes on their resume by the time Selection Sunday comes around. And that could be a third of their schedule almost, BJ. That is wild. That is unprecedented territory for Boise State basketball, I would assume.
Yeah, and I was looking at it too, like just the number of somebody was trying to compare like a New Mexico and a Boise State's resume. One of the New Mexico fans that was getting on me, and I said something. I put the quad 1 and quad 2 thing out there, and somebody goes, "Well, what's the comparison for quad 3 and 4?" And I'm like, well, that doesn't really help your case because New Mexico's 12-0 in 3 and 4, and Boise State's like 5-1 or something. Like Boise State's played so few games against bad teams. Like that's the trade-off when you're playing so many good games. Like Boise State's record is not padded because they played bad teams. Like, so that's why I don't fully understand why the metrics haven't really evened out. But as you said, it's a lot about efficiency numbers and, I'll go back to that Northwestern State game. I know it was earlier in the season when they're still adding the data, but Boise State won by 41, and they went up 34 spots in the net ranking for one win. And so it's just whatever the secret formula is, a 10-point win versus a 4-point win. That kind of stuff matters. That Fresno State game, if they'd have won that game by 20, they probably would have gone up 7 or 8 spots. I mean, it is just crazy.
I agree. And another thing too, like earlier this week, BJ, when Air Force went to UNLV and absolutely throttled the Rebels by 32.
Yeah,
I think UNLV fell like almost 30 spots. I can't remember. I tweeted it out.
It was one of the largest positives for Air Force and negatives for UNLV that people said they'd ever seen in one game in the net ranking.
Okay, so you're telling me if Air Force wins by 1, that same thing happens?
No,
exactly. So like it's absolutely part of the equation, whether they want to reveal their exact formula or not. I have a really tough time believing that if UNLV loses that game by 1 versus 32, there's a similar outcome.
And as Derek says here, the net doesn't technically include margin of victory, but it does measure how often you score per possession, how many points you give up per possession. So in a roundabout way, margin of victory does matter.
Exactly. It measures efficiency. And in that case, if it was a close game, UNLV's efficiencies would have been better. Instead, it was a blowout. They were worse. So like, margin of victory, maybe not for a specific game, but overall it factors in.
And again, I know people don't want to hear this, but that's why in some of these games, Boise State didn't play its bench much. Like the coaches know this, like winning by 14 versus putting in Sam Winter and these guys at the end of the bench, and giving up a 7.
Whoa. My guy Sam, okay, man, easy there, dude. Easy.
I'm just saying. I know Sam's very capable of extending the lead and hitting some threes, but all right, bad example. We'll pick somebody else.
He might be. I think he's shooting 1,000% this season. I'm gonna have to go look that up, but I know he's got a bucket. So
he might. But I'm just saying that was one of the criticisms of the bench was, Leon didn't play him enough when they were up big in games. The system doesn't allow you to do that anymore. The system. We lost Jay there for a second. The system does not allow you to play guys and on the bench, because if you win by 15 versus you win by 7 or 8, that stuff matters. It's a big difference now. So I don't fully understand the net ranking. And again, I don't know if it's going to happen. I do have a weird feeling, by the way, Boise State wins tomorrow fairly easily. And that's not to say Utah State's not a good team. I just think that going on the road in a sellout crowd, it's going to be, they're coming into a tough situation. So I just have a weird feeling Boise State has a chance to win the game rather easily tomorrow. And like I said, if you do, and that's like I said, it's go time. You got, 4 of the next 5 are quad 1 games, but 3 of those are on the road, Jay. You look at this schedule here for Boise State. They have an easier stretch coming, but not for a couple of weeks here. Mm-hmm. And you'd like to go 3-2 in the next 5. I don't know if that's possible. 2-3, you'd maybe take. You're playing at Utah State tomorrow and then at New Mexico on Wednesday. You have Air Force at home next Saturday, but then you're at Colorado State, at Utah State. 4 of the next 5 are quad 1. 3 are on the road. You'd like to somehow get one of the road games. If you can get at New Mexico, at Colorado State, or at Utah State, I would say Colorado State's the most likely. I think it's going to be very, very hard to go to the Pit or go to Logan and get a win. But if you could get one of those 3 road games, somehow go 3-2, and then you have Fresno, San Jose, Wyoming, and Air Force, you can go on a little bit of a winning streak. But this next 2.5 week stretch here is going to be crucial for Boise State's season.
Are you ready?
For what?
For the wild ride that usually is February, where on Tuesday, we're on Tuesday, the season's over, but on Saturday, they might make a Sweet 16 run, but the following Wednesday, fire everyone because this team clearly doesn't have it, only to see, come the following week, they get 2 more wins back in the tournament. I knew this team was these are the guys. They're gonna be the first to get the NCAA tournament win. February is always an insane wild ride, and for the reason that you just laid out, it gets tough, then it gets a little easier, and then it's going to get really tough again. For all those reasons, it makes it awesome and wonderful, but it usually is one heck of a roller coaster where nobody can just settle on like, hey, really good team. They're going to lose some games. They're going to win more games than they lose. Yeah. Every loss means that it's the end of the world, though.
Well, as we get ready for our first 90-second break here, Jay, how about this breaking news from Boise State? Boom. Saturday's game is officially a sellout. So this graphic just posted to social media for Boise State. There's a couple single seats maybe still available that'll pop up. You can keep checking the website. People return tickets and things like that. So if you're wanting to go, I would recommend keep checking the broncosports.com just in case. But more than 24 hours prior to tip-off, Jay Tust, already an announced sellout. Boise State and Utah State, the X is going to be rocking tomorrow.
Man, lock the gates. It's go time. I'll say this, though. If you don't got a ticket, I got one for you. It might be on your couch, though. You're going to have to watch it on KTVB.com or KTV Plus or 24/7. So
Leon said they should make the fire marshal come in, sell some tickets, get as many people in there as possible, and because let's be 100% honest, Jay, tomorrow's sold out, but there's not going to be every seat filled. They have those seats in the lower level, those just older fans or the ones that have passed away and never handed on their tickets. Like, folks just, for whatever reason, Boise State has a problem with getting people in the lower level to actually show up for the games. And so we'll see tomorrow if it's different, a 2 p.m. game. But they announced a sellout, I believe, for San Diego State. And there was, or maybe they didn't, but one of those
I don't
games,
know if they announced a sellout,
There was several hundred, open orange seats that are just glaring. So we'll see what it actually looks like tomorrow. But the fact that it's a sellout, you're going to have the second and third decks loud, and that place is going to be rocking. But we got to see how many of the lower level folks show up.
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right. I'm excited either way.
We went 34 minutes without a break, so we got to take a quick 90-second break. And I do want to talk Stacy Collins for a few minutes, Jay, when we get back. But quick 90-second timeout. Back in 90 seconds here on Bronco Nation News. All Bronco Nation News broadcasts come from the Cutwater Spirits Canned Cocktail Studios. Check out one of their more than 30 flavors of premix premium cocktails at your local gas station or grocery store. Cutwater Spirits, perfect for your next game day tailgate party. Our title sponsor is rowpaint.com. For all your commercial, industrial, residential painting needs, check out rowpaint.com. Don't forget about their concrete coatings. Transform that ugly concrete slab on your back patio in your garage in just one day. Contact rowpaint.com for a free estimate today. The official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics, and our title sponsor at Bronco Nation News is rowpaint.com. Idaho Central Credit Union's been helping members achieve financial success for more than 80 years. There's an ICCU branch on almost every corner, but the closest is in your pocket with free eBranch mobile and online banking. See why more than 500,000 members love ICCU and join 1 in 4 Idahoans by making the switch today at ICCU.com. Since 1984, Ridley's Family Markets has prided itself on being a hometown food and drug store that employed value members of the local community. Ridley's Family Markets has 13 locations in the state of Idaho and many more in the surrounding states. Download the new Ridley's app to your smartphone, get savings up to 40% off at the checkout line, and find a location near you at shopridleys.com. Former Bronco Matt Bauscher is once again the number 1 ranked realtor in the Treasure Valley. No home is too big or too small for Matt and his team. Let them fulfill all your real estate needs at BauscherRealEstate.com. All right, Jay, doing a quick look here on the let's see if I can share my screen real quick. Somebody said there was still 100 tickets left online. I just went and looked. That's not the case. Let me share the screen here real quick. This is the current ticket map. So there actually is, they're calling it a sellout, but there is literally a couple of single tickets left here somewhere. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are a couple tickets left. Looks like mostly singles, though, if you're wanting to go tomorrow. They are calling it a sellout, but I see like 7 or 8 tickets still left online. But someone that said there was 100, that doesn't seem to be the case. But I would say 6 tickets maybe. Let's see what they got right there. Is there one up in this area? Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4. I count 5, 6. 6 tickets left from what I can see. So I guess they're calling it a sellout early, but I would say that these tickets pop back on sometimes. So if you are still wanting to go, you can certainly keep refreshing broncosports.com, and sometimes folks will turn theirs back in or things can happen. But that's big time for Boise State that they've already got this game essentially sold out with 24 hours to go until tip-off. Jay, we don't have all day with you here, so I do want to talk a little bit about Stacy Collins real quick. He met with the media yesterday, and I hate that it's, this is probably shouldn't be surprising to folks, but I post a Leon Rice video and I post a Stacy Collins video to our Bronco Nation News YouTube channel. And one's got 1,300 views already, and one's got 300. And you can probably guess that Stacy Collins, even though 24 hours from a huge game tomorrow, the football just continues to be the top dog right now. And I think the excitement around this team and the excitement of somebody like Stacy Collins coming back is certainly a big part. But he talked for about 20 minutes yesterday and basically admitted that, I took a big pay cut, but my family loves it in Boise. I love it in Boise. I love working for a guy like Spencer Danielson, and it's his we'll never fully know the final straw if something had
Right.
happened at Penn State or what truly was the reason. But it is very rare for someone in his position, the ascent that he was on. When you're a special teams coordinator, a position coach in the Big Ten, then you go to like coordinator in the Big Ten, or then you go to coordinator somewhere, and then you go to head coach. Like for him to basically take a lateral move from that standpoint, but essentially a downgrade to come back to a Group of 5 type school with a $200,000 or $300,000 pay cut. Like it just shows how much he wanted to be here. And based on what he said, I don't know how fans couldn't be fired up about what he plans to bring to the special teams and linebacker units.
Well, I think the two biggest things that stood out to me, BJ, and I think we tried to convey this from the jump. Like Stacy wanted to be here. This wasn't a scenario where he was let go by Penn State. He was under contract with the Nittany Lions. Like he wanted to be on Spencer Danielson's staff. He wanted to have his family return and live in the city of trees. Like these are all things that he wanted, right?
Yeah.
And he admitted that yesterday. Like he said he loved his time there. He talked so highly of James Franklin and the Penn State program, but he just felt like this is where he wanted to be at this point in time in his career. I think he said something, he's coached this game for $50. He's coached this game for hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's like, honestly, that the money isn't the most important thing to me right now. This is where he wanted to be. He felt like this is what was calling to him. And now he returns to Boise. The other thing that stood out to me, BJ, is that he said that they are going to be aggressive in the return game.
I've got that clip.
That is not the way that I would have described Boise State's punt return or kick return game last season.
Let's play the first 60-second clip, and then I don't know if you have the numbers or not, Jay, in terms of how many kicks and punts they actually returned last year. But here's what you're talking about. I think you asked the question, and here's Stacy Collins on his philosophy in the return game.
Be aggressive in the return game, both kick and punt return, and part of it's they're situational. Let's start with kick return, right? Because that's the one everybody wants to talk about. Hey, do you just throw the fair catch at? Do you start on the 25-yard line? And there's times maybe you need to do that. And there's times you may not get returns. You're playing in the Mountain West. You're playing at elevation. And maybe that week you don't spend as much time in return game because you may have a chance to do it. But I think if you've got an elite returner and you can change the momentum of a game. And when you look at kick return, when you're on the field, okay, unless it's the start of the half or the start of the game, something bad's happened, right? They've scored on you. How do we get that momentum back? How can we get that starting field position back for our offense and Bush and his crew right there to get in a better starting spot? Or if not out, let's flip the field with James and pin him back and play defense. So it's putting it all together from a field position standpoint. So we're going to be aggressive returning kicks. Now, that being said, there's a lot of factors into it, right? Who's your opponent? What is the windy conditions? We got to identify a kick returner that we feel it can give us that starting field position. So that my philosophy, and we were very aggressive at it the last 2 years at Penn State, is to get our guys out there and let's find momentum out there and let's find starting field position.
And there's Stacy Collins, and I have one more quote we can get to in a second, Jay, talking about the interesting research he's done in terms of when they bring the block on the punts, how much more yardage they get. So I can play that in a second. But before I do, just your take on his aggressiveness and the lack thereof that we saw at Boise State this year.
I mean, I think over time, Boise State has developed a reputation as, being really good on special teams. And back when they were upsetting teams, those would be the unsung battles that they would dominate and help them pull, some of these massive upsets, if you will. Yeah. And, that hasn't been the case for the last, definitely the last season, maybe the last couple of seasons. And so it'll be good to see them kind of reclaim that, BJ. I love the fact that he said he's going to be so aggressive. If you look back at last year, Boise State ranked 79th in the country in average kickoff return. They were 116th in the country in total punt return. So they basically never actually returned punts. And then they were 126th in the country in total kick or total punt return yards, right? I mean, they were just basically non-existent in punt return. And so it'll be welcoming to see if they can get back to maybe what they once were in that department.
And didn't they only return like 7 or 8 punts all season or something crazy like that?
Yeah, 8 punts all season.
Yeah, 8 punts.
They returned 8 punts all season.
In 14 games.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you look back and it's funny. I actually kind of misspoke yesterday because Avery Williams was drafted in 2021.
Yeah.
But that that's the 2021 draft. Stacy Collins was here in 2021. So the draft is in April. Obviously, the season's played in the fall. And I just kind of chalked it up to some of his special team success when he was here the last time. I was like, man, dude had Avery Williams. That actually is not the case. It happened in the same year, yes, but Avery was actually gone by the time Stacy Collins got here. And so they had a multiple punt returns the year Stacy Collins was here. I think some of those were off blocked kicks as well.
Yeah.
I think they had 7 combined blocked punts and field goal attempts when Stacy Collins was here that year. And so he can dial it up, man. He's special. And I think they need to get back to embracing that you don't hold your breath and just get to the next down on special teams. You change the freaking game on special teams. And talking with Stacy Collins yesterday, he's ready to change the game on special teams again.
And didn't Avery Williams technically have another year left? I think
he had his COVID year.
I think that I remember that being the initial press conference with Stacy Collins on Zoom when he got hired, and it was like, any chance you can get Avery Williams to stick around? He's like, I wish, probably not. And you're right. But he said he got to know him, and he came back and stuff, and was obviously a part of it. But one more quick bite I wanted to play, which I found interesting, Jay, was the correlation between trying to block kicks and how that ends up getting you more punt return yards. Here's what he had to say about that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to put a percentage on it because I do think each team has a different picture, right? And I don't know right now. I mean, I got to get through spring. I got to get a feel for where we're at with these guys. We've got to identify who those best guys are. We got to go through summer and see that. But I will tell you this, we studied for a long time. When we bring blocks, we average about 7.7 more yards per return. So over the last 10 years, we looked at that. Now, that doesn't mean we don't call returns, but we're creating natural space. We're holding people in. We're forcing the ball out quicker. So those are some things that we look at. So it's hard for me to answer the percentage because each place and each time is going to be a little bit different. And then it's going to be a factor. Where are you at in the game? I mean, are we down? Do we need to be a little bit more aggressive in that situation? Are you situation you're controlling the game? All those factor into it, but we will be aggressive with it. We're going to do everything we can to create yardage and create blocks in that phase.
And very interesting. By the way, Jay, just some of the stuff that he said, it makes me realize I know very little about football, or I'm not a football guy. When you like just the random stuff on a kickoff, it's usually because something bad happened to you, and you don't think about that, and you're like, you know what, you're right. When you are returning a kick, unless it's the start of the game or the half, that means the other team scored on you. Just small stuff like that you don't think about. And, the elevation for returns and all that, maybe isn't the first thing that comes to mind. But what he said there I thought was interesting, because when they go to block a kick, that forces the gunners and some of those guys on the other team to stay back. That forces the punter to have to get the ball out quicker. And by you trying to block the kick, you actually help yourself on the back end if you don't block it on the return. I never would have put 2 and 2 together, but he said in his last 10 years of doing this, where he's been, they've averaged more than 7 yards per game more on a return per return when they try to block the kick. I found that interesting.
Yeah, I think that is interesting, because I think on one hand, if you're not set up for return and you're going for the block, maybe you have a less chance of really breaking the big one. Sure. But if you want to flip field position and steal 10 yards at a time or something like that, that might be the best route to go. Another thing with that, BJ, is not only do you keep more guys in, but you probably force the punter to get the ball off a little faster. You might make him more uncomfortable. If he's an Aussie style punter, that might prevent rollouts a little bit more. So you might be putting a little more pressure on the punter in those situations too, which, execution becomes more difficult for him. So you're right, though. I love the fact, when he broke out that 7.7 yards, I was like, oh, now we're talking. Okay. I like this stuff. I'll eat that up.
Start to perk up a little bit when you
yeah. I'll eat that stuff up, but it just shows why Stacy Collins is a special mind, and it's big to get him back. Really big to get him back. And I again, it's unprecedented, man. I wonder if it's ever happened before where Boise State took a Power 5 assistant coach, transitioned him into a very similar role here for much less, and that's what it is. They wanted to be a part of that situation more than the bigger situation. When we say bigger situation, guys, I'm sorry. Some of you might be getting offended to that, but it is what it is. It's a Power 5 job. It's double the paycheck probably in some cases, and to come back here, man, read into it. Stacy Collins wants to be here.
Yeah, and by the way, it kind of snuck it in at the end yesterday. I didn't tweet it out, but I think it's still kind of newsworthy. Like the SID essentially said they're done with the signing class for now, and they don't plan to sign anybody on the and I don't think that's a huge surprise because they don't have any spots left. Like they're still over right now, but it sounds like they are not planning to sign anybody on the February 7th signing day. Spencer Danielson is still scheduled to meet with the media on that day, but what you see right now, at least going into the summer, you could see some guys added from the transfer portal in the summer, Jay. But right now, the 2024 signing class is done.
Yeah, you're right there. When we actually left signing day, I can't remember if it was 18 or 19 guys that they announced. I think the 19th was announced the following day. I can't exactly remember. But they've added about a half dozen guys out of the transfer portal on top of that, right? So they feel really good about where they're going into that early or that late signing day period. And you're 1,000% right though. Like this is just for now. You get through spring ball. The next and final transfer window opens prior to the season. Following spring ball. Without a doubt, you're going to have some moving and shaking, going on in that period, and you figure it out. You tack it then.
Final thing for you, Jay, avid viewer of the show here, Johnny Ballgame Show has a question asking if Jay Tust will jump into the pool with him at the BNN KTIK pool party at Circa. So Johnny did a cannonball during a commercial break. I videotaped it last year. It was on the intro for Ball Talk. I could probably find it if I really wanted to real quick, but any chance that we can get you out there doing an afternoon live shot or hanging out at all at the pool party?
We'll see. I do not want to steal Johnny's thunder though. Like I feel like that's Johnny's thing. It'd be like if Johnny showed up on the radio today just saying boom all of a sudden, right? I'd be like, bro, come on now. Like what the heck? It'd be like throwing a stat out there for single digit wins if you're a national, broadcast company and not like being like, hey, that was tweeted out a couple days ago by some small doofus in Boise, So that might be your thing, Johnny. I'll talk to you about an invite, but I don't want to steal your thunder or your splash, my brother.
So you mean if Clark Kellogg offers you one of the Degenhart dozen donuts, you wouldn't be the first to get out of your chair and hurry down when you see him passing out donuts?
I would take the donut. Yeah, that's different. Okay. I'm good taking the donut.
Johnny about fell out of his – literally Clark Kellogg starts passing him out to stadium workers, and I've never seen Johnny run faster to get down there to the front to try to grab a chocolate sprinkled Long John there from Clark Kellogg.
The best part about that, Johnny's also trying to secure his next interview. I heard that clip. You texted me the following day, and I missed this, and I'm really upset about it because I would have had some fun with it. But, he's also down there trying to talk shop and make sure he can secure his next outstanding interview.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of which, we're over 50 people, Jay Tust, that have RSVP'd for this pool party. It's going to be a lot of fun. So email me, Rains at BroncoNationNews.com, Rains at BroncoNationNews.com. If you're going to be in Las Vegas, it's like a $40 cover charge, but it's free if you reach out to me and they get you on the list at the front door. We just ask if you RSVP that you actually show up because we are keeping track of that for food and drinks and stuff. But it's March 15th, Friday. They'll be doing Prater in the ball game out there. I'll be doing a show out there. And yes, maybe we can get a Mike Prater, John Mallory, Jay Tust cannonball into the pool at Stadium Swim. We'll see what we can do. But RSVP if you plan to come. Looking forward to that. And Jay, looking forward to tomorrow. Should be fun. Extra Mile Arena, 2 o'clock tip-off. We'll be live with the Lithia Ford of Boise pregame show about 1 o'clock. We'll have Abe Jackson on. We'll show you the warm-ups, get you ready for tip-off. We'll hear from Leon Rice a little bit. So going to be a loud, full, sellout crowd and should be a lot of fun and a huge game for Boise State. And like I said, a win is all you really care about. But if there was some way they could find a way to win this game just because of the way the metrics are set up, and I'll say this on Tuesday, or Wednesday, probably not going to happen. But if you go to the pit and win that game, like it's going to help. So I don't want to say comfortable, but every point matters tomorrow for these net rankings. We'll just say that, and we'll see what happens. But I feel pretty good about Boise State's chances. I think tomorrow's a game where Boise State's clicking, the crowd's into it, and I think Boise State has a really good chance of an impressive win tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I think the place is going to be rocking, and it's going to be one of those great college basketball moments that you want to be there for, in my opinion. Can't wait.
But if not, you can
But if not, you can go ahead and stream it on KTVB.com or KTVB
Somebody
Plus.
was asking if you can record that. I think the archives are available, at least on the Mountain West Network. I don't know about KTVB Plus, Jay, but can they go back and watch it later?
They should be able to, and I know for sure that we'll re-air it a number of times on KTVB Plus. So we should have you covered for sure.
Perfect. Looking forward to that. Appreciate you guys for all checking us out. Remember to RSVP for the pool party. Subscribe, sign up for BNN if you can, and make sure to follow us on all of our various social media channels. And make sure you're checking out Jay on KTVB and listening to Johnny and Prater today. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. We got player interviews today. Who you got today, Jay?
Daggy.
You got Degenhardt. I think I got Cam Martin. I think Johnny and Prater interviewing Roddy Anderson one-on-one. So a lot of one-on-one interviews today, and you'll be hearing those on the various channels, KTVB, KTIK, and obviously BNN. So we'll talk to you at 1 o'clock tomorrow for the pregame show live from Extra Mile Arena. Have a great rest of your Friday, folks. We'll talk to you later. And big one at the X tomorrow. Should be fun. We'll have you covered. Bronco Nation News at BroncoNationNews.com.